Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. It's time for the Major League Baseball season, which means it's time for the fantasy baseball season. Thanks so much for tuning into the show for the next 2 hours. We have you covered on everything that happened with a D in spring training. In fact, there's just a couple of days left. Some exhibition games on Monday as well, and then it's really just time for the regular season. So I'm guessing a lot of you are doing your drafts this weekend. We'll also recap everything that happened in Tokyo with the couple games that were played there. It was the most watched overseas series of all time. Certainly a lot of people getting very into all of the overseas players that the Dodgers and Cubs have, by the way. And needless to say, we'll go through some things that happen in spring training, maybe some buy or sell, things that we think could actually happen during the regular season. And I know a lot of you right now, this time of the year, who are tuning in, you may be saying, where is my March Madness coverage? Where is my college basketball coverage? Don't worry. Lots of games today. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit here on this show, too. I watched a lot of the games yesterday. Very exciting NCAA tournament. A lot of favorites, by the way, winning in the NCAA tournament as well, which is unusual. The ones, Sam, am I right here? Are you following the tournament? I believe all the ones, the threes and the fours all won, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, all moving on. Yeah. So the top 16 seeds in the NCAA tournament are all moving on. And maybe we'll jump into that here a little bit on the show, because why not? It is a fantasy day, but it is a March Madness day as well. All right, let's get to some of the top stories and the headlines here as we begin on the final Saturday without baseball all the way through September of 2025. Kyle Gibson has signed a one-year contract with the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles, of course, a little thin, having some injuries again to their rotation, and certainly didn't basically count on not having Grayson Rodriguez at the start of the season. They don't have Corbin Burns. They are familiar with Kyle Gibson, of course, so he ends up going back and basically stayed out the entire offseason to get this one-year contract. It is guaranteed money, so he will for the Orioles this season. In addition, Yu Darvish, Luis Garcia, of course, of Houston, Robert Suarez, all nursing some injuries, sort of status going into the season a little bit unclear. Thairo Estrada, bad news for him. Good news was he went to Colorado, but the bad news is he's 4 to 8 weeks going into the regular season. So that's certainly not good news there. But the best news of all is that Thursday it begins for real. And George, I know that this is it. It's the final weekend before the season begins. I know some people drafted last week, tried to get ahead of that quick series. I don't know why. It didn't really make much sense to me. But it's come. I just don't know how people can do this around March Madness. It's like really, hard to do. I remember several years ago flying up to New York City and doing Tout Wars in the middle, Madison Square Garden, and walking 5 minutes to go watch Florida play South Carolina in the Sweet 16. So I get it, but there's a lot of distractions going on this weekend as well. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I think as much as I may not be a March Madness guy, to find other, whether you're in a 10-team league, 12-team league, whatever, find 11 other people who aren't interested is very difficult. They're going to want to watch the games here. So it's a bad weekend to have or a tough weekend to have the draft here. I guess you could have a March Madness draft party and go wild there, but I prefer to draft before. I prefer to draft before the Tokyo series. I liked, even though those two games really not much happened there, I still prefer to draft before that here. You went over the headlines there. The big news there, I guess, is all the pitching injuries we've had this spring training, right? So many injuries. Obviously, Garrett Cole here. You mentioned the Orioles signed Gibson. Maybe no Grayson Rodriguez here for a little bit here. So pitching looks like it's going to be at a premium once again this season.
Yeah, a couple of other injuries. Max Scherzer looks like may not make his first turn through the rotation with the Toronto Blue Jays, but he is recovering. But there was one other injury this week, and of course hits close to home for me, George, because somebody who covers the Marlins and has been around a long time, maybe outside of Sandy Alcantara, their second most impressive pitcher in the spring was this left-handed pitcher named Ryan Weathers, who was supposed to start the second game of the season for them. And he had a forearm strain, which is going to cost him, I don't know. You really don't know with these things, but at least a couple of months, I'm going to guess, April and May into the season. And so, George, even these like middle round players, if you got through spring training, then you were really happy with it without having an injury. And then you kind of felt like, I got myself a sleeper in Weathers, or I got myself a sleeper in Jared Jones. And here you are trying to fill those in before the season even begins. By the way, was there, I know earlier in the week they shut him down and hoping for the best, expecting the worst. Was there any definitive timeline on Jones? I don't even know that I saw that this week.
No, he's on my my home fantasy league. He's one of my pitchers, and I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for the bad news because once again, he was getting a second opinion, and generally, you do not get a second opinion if it's good news, right? So, sort of waiting for the, I guess, gloom and doom there to happen. I think what teams, you would know this better than I would. Teams generally can start placing players on IL a day or two for the regular season, so like Tuesday-ish. And I guess that's what we'll find out for sure. Yeah. So they'll place them on the IL, and then we'll make our 8,000 really moves we got to make in fantasy. There are a lot of guys who are going to go on IL. I mean, we're talking probably double digits here. That's going to go to pitchers and some hitters as well. And it's frustrating because depending on what your rules are, is it a massive fab day? Is it a massive run to the computer to be the first person, first come, first serve to get that pitcher that's available if still on the on your waiver wire, right? So it's going to be an interesting week in fantasy baseball.
Yeah, the biggest injury from a fantasy perspective was, hoping, I guess, offensively this week that Estrada would be ready. I mean, the thing is that, he's going to have a broken wrist. The Rockies will find, somebody to fill him in, over the next couple of months. But, George, I think that for me, once we get through tomorrow, I sort of want to forget about these injuries and just sort of get ready for opening day and be optimistic. That, to me, is the fun part of opening day. It's just a shame that every year in spring training, we kind of got to go through this again.
Yeah, injuries are part of the game. All right, it's how you manage your team, right? I think I've said this a couple of times on this show. I'm a big believer. 12-team league, 3 teams get eliminated because they didn't pay attention. They didn't make their moves. They didn't care. 3 other teams will get eliminated because you had all the injuries, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? You had 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 injuries, and it just decimated your team here. And you got to avoid being one of those teams. It is what it is. I got to tell you, Craig, in my home league, it was late. I couldn't pass up on him, but I drafted Royce Lewis. And I knew when I drafted, I even said to myself, well, when he gets hurt, this is my fault. And I can't complain. And sure enough, he got hurt, right? They say it's not as bad as last year, but he's going to start the season on the IL. Maybe he's back in mid-April. We'll see here. But I said, when you draft those, this is why you have to be so careful, because when you draft those kinds of players, you can't draft 2, 3, 4 of those players. And if they all get hurt at the same time, you're just dead. Like I said, I drafted Lewis. It was late. He was not a starter for me, so it's not backbreaking. But it's like, you got to be kidding me. Already you're hurt? I didn't even get at the start of the season here. So it is what it is. But pitching is really where the problem is. Because I can see some staffs. If you drafted in early March, well, you're already down. You can be down 3, 4 players already. Maybe you drafted Grace. Maybe you drafted Jared Jones. I said, I got in my home league. I'm going to have to make up for it here. So it's those moves you make that really could save your season or determine where you're going to be.
Yeah, and throughout the show, I'm going to try and throw in some spring training tidbits as we close the book on spring training 2025. Still games today, still games tomorrow. George, do you know who led spring training in hits this year?
No idea. No clue. Dominic Smith.
No. Curtis Mead.
Oh, God. No way. You could have given me 1,000. You could have told me the team, and I wouldn't have gotten this.
Look at Sam's got a graphic for Curtis Mead. I don't care, Sam. We can talk about him all day long. Very impressive. Sam, I was going to compliment you for having a graphic ready to go on Curtis Mead, and then Sam's all mad because we're gonna don't talk about it too much. If we have 2 hours on the show, like we can't even talk about New Mexico winning against the Cat. We got plenty of time here on the show.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. It was the most watched overseas series of all time, most merchandise sold of all time. I mean, I didn't see all these numbers coming, to be honest with you, but I mean, I guess I should have, given the amount of international players that were in the Cubs-Dodgers series. I mean, even the Cubs had one in Imanaga. The Dodgers certainly have Ohtani and Yamamoto and Sasaki. But George, you know, early on the season, you don't want to make too much of this stuff. And, I'm glad, like, the average person, in the United States didn't seem to overreact. But, it's funny, the national media seemed to be like, oh, that's it. Dodgers are going 150-12, after watching these games. They don't realize it's a long season, but that's kind of the narrative there. But I think we can fairly say that the games were dominant by the Dodgers. Like, you didn't think the Cubs were going to win at all in either game, but it's the only 2 games we have thus far that count for the regular season. A couple of guys going 4 innings. Sasaki, I thought, showed a lot. Yamamoto showed a lot. Look, what's left to be said about those 2 pitchers, Yamamoto and Sasaki, and what's left to be said about the Dodgers? They even did it without some of their stars, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. It's a loaded team, but it's a long season, and in reality and fantasy, can the Dodgers have the best record of all time? Of course they can. I mean, it's possible, but I'm not going to be silly and think that they're going to go like 150-12 or 140-22. They're going to, win their 100 games, and then we'll see what they do in the postseason.
I'm really wishing for 104 games, Greg. So let's get 104, as that's what the over-under is, and I took the over at 103.5. Listen, I think they're going to be a very good team. Are they going to win 150? No. Do I think they have a shot at the record? Yeah, I do. Like I said, I took 103.5 over for the Dodgers here. There also was a bet of was it over 110.5? I took that as well, but that's more of a fun bet where I don't expect them to do that. But why not? The price was good. I took it. All right, so we'll see that. You mentioned they did win without Mookie Betts, who has the illness. We'll see if he starts opening day here. Freddie Freeman, probably the bigger worry for an injury, as he's got the little intercostal rib, oblique, whatever you want to call it there. And he said it's the same injury he had in October. Well, that's not good. All right, that's 6 months ago, and you're still not over that? So that could be a problem here. I would certainly be worried about that if I drafted Freddie Freeman, or am thinking about Freddie Freeman. I might drop him a little bit, where maybe he's the last. I think there's 5 big first basemen. He might be the last of those first basemen now, right? Maybe I would draft Guerrero ahead of him, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso, guys like that. Might want to think about it. First base is thin. I keep saying that. First baseman is a guy, a position I want a second round. because I don't want to be stuck with, Yandy Diaz, Christian Walker, guys like that. Even though they're fine players, but they're certainly a downgrade of that. I thought the pitching, Yamamoto was fine. Sasaki could not control his secondary pitches. The fastball, he was throwing 99, 100, no problem with the arm there, but his secondary pitches he could not control, and the Cubs knew it. And they got him out of the game after 3 innings there. We'll see what he's like in his second start. The nerves calmed down a little bit. Once again, pitching in Japan game 2. I'm sure the nerves were there. Sure. So we'll see how it works this weekend. And by the way, that was not a home run by Ohtani. Major League Baseball did not want to overturn that because that was not a home run. That was definitely fan interference there. That being said, I was on his home run prop. Quarter break. Finally catch a break. Isn't that what it feels like when you finally get one? Like, oh, I finally caught a break here. I'm sure it's happened before here, but that was not a home run. But baseball did not want to overturn that. Also, they showed no replays of it. Just weird how they did that there. But hey, it was fun to get baseball started here. But Craig, it was a tease. Right now it's a tease. I'm still waiting 4 or 5 more days here before baseball officially starts.
Yeah, and I'll be in the house to watch the Marlins matchup against the Pirates with Alcantara and Paul Skeens. So pitching-wise, let's just run through real quick. Yamamoto, 5 innings, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Dominant start for him. And again, not going to go more than 5 innings. Sasaki, 3 innings pitched, 5 walks, 1 earned run, struck out 3, pumping 99, 100. This was a surprising one. Imanaga, who didn't walk anyone all last season, walked 4. I'm going to guess it was just nerves first game. Not going to really be concerned with that. Ohtani, as George mentioned, did homer. Gets off to a 375 start. Kyle Tucker, slow start, although, again, it is 2 games. Let's go into the Cubs here a little bit. Matt Shaw made his debut. Looked good defensively. They really just didn't do anything offensively, but, I'm not overly concerned with anything with the Cubs. I really think they could have, in the offseason used Bregman. To me, that was like a really good fit for them that they didn't end up getting. But, they're mixing and matching things throughout the season. I do think Tucker will be great. They certainly have a lot of other players that I think that are going to be fantasy relevant throughout the season. But the Cubs, to me, are just like 1 or 2 players short from really having an impact this year.
100% agree with you. Right, they might be the best team in the National League Central, but that's because it's the National League Central. There are no great teams. All right, but I don't consider this team to be a threat to anybody. Listen, it's 2 games in April, or March actually. So you're not judging anything off it, but they didn't look all that great. They literally threw away game 1. All right, Hap. And you can't call it error, but it's a misplay in left field. Catches that ball, that whole inning may be dead. And I could have saved the 3 runs. Birdie also threw away a double play ball to the 13th row, so that didn't help any either. So defense really cost them in that inning. If you play clean defense, game theoretically can still be on right now, be 1-1. So I got to play better in that. And against Sasaki, you saw the walks. You had base runners all day long. You just couldn't get the big hit really to drive them in here. Justin Steele didn't look all that great. Kept throwing home run balls there. Kiki Hernandez and Tommy Edman. Is what it is. But like I said, you play with Dodgers. What are you going to do here? I'm not really all that panicking about the Cubs either. And it's a weak division. They'll be fine here. And listen, you heard Ohtani say that even it was as nervous as he's felt, more than opening day, more than the WBC, more than the World Series. So let you know the Japanese players playing in this series and back home in Tokyo was nerve-wracking for them. They'll all be fine.
Yeah, I think so. And get ready for opening day, folks, here on SportsGrid next Thursday, because not only is it opening day, but it's the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. What a crazy day we have. That generally don't have that going on at the same time, but we this year. The SportsGrid app is certainly available to download. Take out your phone, scan it for your QR code, and it's updated for iOS and Android, and it works really fast, and it's really cool. Is that a good promo? I hope so. We'll be back with more fantasy sports today when we return right after this. Don't go away.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they've lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Spring training stats, generally speaking, not the best to go off of. Although there are some players in the past that have had great springs and have carried over to the regular season and conversely struggled in the regular season as well. We mentioned Curtis Mead. He led all of spring training in hits. He led the Grapefruit League. Again, there's still a game or two left, and that could change. George, who was second? Who had the second most hits? I'm going to do this all show until you either Google it or guess. One of the two.
I'm not going to Google it during an episode. I mean, I'm
going to give you some hints. Okay, I'm going to give you hints. Okay, ready?
Go ahead.
Okay, Cactus League. How many more hints do you need? Tell me. How many do you think you can get it in?
I don't think I'll get it, no matter how many hints you give me.
Yes, you will. Pick a number.
How many hints? I'll play Name That Tune. Maybe I can do it in 3 hints.
Okay, so Cactus League I'm going to eliminate, okay? Ready? Here we go. American League West player.
That doesn't help. That's all the Cactus League. I know that.
Okay. Outfielder. Okay.
Got a guy in mind.
Okay.
I don't think it's him.
Sacramento.
Oh, all right. It was the name I had in my head. I'll go Lawrence Butler.
There you go.
All
There's a winner in town. This is your day, George. You got some luck going here. You may want to bet like St. John's today or something like that.
I'm St. John's. Go St. 2-4. I know that's 240 against Arkansas. All right, and then you should be
they're
very
going to
proud
air
of
the
me
show
for knowing that.
and lose, and everyone is going to go, what is this show? Oh, they're airing this twice. Anyway, so let's go to the spring training standouts. Lawrence Butler, second most hits in spring training. Curtis Mead, number 1. How about that? All right, Rhys Hoskins, 6 home runs, 8 runs driven in, 281 batting average. This is a player where I'm guessing spring training stats mean absolutely nothing. He's done it for so long. Had a nice year, I thought, last year in Milwaukee, too. I would expect 25 home runs if healthy and doing what he normally does there, filling in the middle of the lineup. It's going to be a little bit different not having Willie Adames there. Maybe that will change some things. Milwaukee didn't necessarily go out there and sign Soto this offseason, George.
Yeah, no, Hoskins, I think, is being a little underdrafted, in my opinion. I mean, I'm looking at a draft list now. He's going about in the mid-teens as far as first baseman. So he's being drafted more as your corner infielder, maybe as utility player here. He plays in a bandbox, right, in Milwaukee there. Now, you said it, the lineup's not going to be the same without Adames. I get that. Listen, you still got some other decent hitters there. It's really the length of the lineup that's going to be a problem here. I don't have a problem with how I said I don't want him to be my first baseman, Craig. All right, that's an issue. But as I said, I think he's right there with guys like, the Goldschmidts of the world, Yandy Diaz, whatever you think about Spencer Steer and Louis Arias, who's more of a, going to protect your average, which I don't mind in drafts. We got to do that here. But I think, if you're looking for power later in your draft, and you can get him later, Hoskins is a nice choice.
Last season, the Minnesota Twins gave a lot of playing time in the second half to a kid named Matt Wallner, 27-year-old. He ended up hitting 13 home runs, played 200 at-bats, projected out to hit 30 homers. Who is this guy? I don't know. He was a competitive balance A pick a few years ago, so they did have high hopes, but not this high. I mean, with Royce Lewis out, this guy's going to play constantly. He's already got 6 home runs in the spring, George. So, I mean, he is one of those, you never know, one-hit wonder kind of guys from last season, but definitely a hot name this spring training.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those dartboard throws. All right, he's at the hot spring, fine. You're going to go with him, and then you'll move on eventually here. The whole Twins team is almost like that. I mean, I know you know these names, but, it's like stop me when you heard of somebody. Ty France is your first baseman. Castro's your second baseman. Royce Lewis is already hurt. Supposed to play third. Correa, fine. We know those guys. Jose Miranda, Trevor Larnach, Byron Buxton until he gets hurt, and Wallner. This is a team that they can pitch, but hitting, they're trying to cobble it together. And they're going to need like Wallner to be better than just April guys. The guys are going to hit all season long here. I think the Twins are going to struggle on offense there. So I have no problem drafting outfielder. We need 5, fine, go with it. But I don't see him being a guy where you're going to draft this weekend and he'll still be on your team in September. Don't see it.
All right, we'll take a quick timeout. When we come back next, we mentioned Curtis Mead, the spring that he had. No word yet. I don't believe they announced if he made the shot. So we'll dive into that next. And also the hot start for a couple of players on Baltimore and the Los Angeles Angels. We'll see what it means for the regular season. You're watching Fantasy today here on SportsGrid. We'll be right back.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Thanks for waking up with us this morning and each and every morning during the fantasy baseball season. So, George, when the Baltimore Orioles went into that pseudo rebuild for year 1, year 2, year 3, it was a while, losing a lot of games. One of the players that they drafted that ended up being part of that rebuild process, ironically, before we saw Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holliday, and before we will see Colby Mayo and Colton Cowser and a lot of the other players, was Ryan Mountcastle. Mountcastle was playing during this time, and they kind of figured that when the rebuild was over, this guy would lead the charge. I mean, he's been okay, but George, he's not, Adley Rutschman or anything like that. He's having a great spring. I mean, 14 runs driven in, 324 batting average. He's one of a group of Orioles that 1 through 7, 1 through 8 are pretty much as potent as any offense in the big leagues. But what are the expectations here? Do we know who Mountcastle is at this point? Is it possible there is a 40 home run season or something like that in store here, or have we just basically seen the best?
I mean, I don't know if we've basically seen the best, but you're not going to get that 40 home run season either. This is sort of good news, bad news, right? The good news is they have brought the fences back in at Camden. Not to where they used to be, but not to the Grand Canyon. They had it there. All right. The bad news is that he's going to be in a platoon more than likely at first base, and he's on the wrong end of that platoon. All right, because Ryan O'Hearn has to play. You already said it. The Orioles have a very good offense, and they have like 19 players here. Everybody has to play, which means if you get any kind of slump, you're going to sit. Because if Mike Else is not hitting, well, then O'Hearn's going to play. And then you got Cows, and you got Kerstad, Mullins, Holiday, Westberg. Tyler O'Neill, who I didn't understand that signing here. Made no sense to me because you didn't need that position. I just don't see where all these guys are going to be able to play on a day in, day out basis. Mountcastle could be a 4 to 5 game a week player. And there's a couple guys like that on the Orioles that are going to be like that because they have a lot of players that need to play. And I think it's going to be a prove it. You're hot, you're in the lineup. You're not, hey, we're moving on here. The American League East is going to be tight. Orioles, Yankees. I think the Jays are going to be there. Maybe even the Rays will make some noise, and the Red Sox will be there as well. It's going to be a tight division here. So I don't think the Orioles are going to screw around here and wait for someone to break out of a slump or figure things out here. And as I said, if he's platooning with O'Hearn, that's the wrong end of a platoon if you're the right-hander.
Yeah, it is. And O'Hearn kind of came out of nowhere to be a star on the Orioles. So, yeah, I mean, George, you're right. I think they got to play both of those guys. All right, great spring for Cody Bellinger. He's actually tied for the second most hits in the spring. I didn't know that until Sam brought it up. We'll never even remember this next year, by the way. But Bellinger having one of the best springs in all of the Grapefruit League. He's hitting .465 with 3 home runs, 7 runs driven in. Yankees play today. I believe they play tomorrow, and then they play in Miami one more time before they open up at home. So, look, I mean, George, this is like the Bellinger-Yelich question every year. It's like we saw those great years from those two guys. And, Bellinger in that free agent season, in that walk year, ended up having a really good year. And then the Cubs kind of looked at it and were like, I don't know, like, maybe we should move on. Yankees will take a shot here. Easier to hit home runs there than it will be where he was. But I don't know, George. I'm kind of at the point here where Bellinger is not 25 years old anymore, Like, I feel like it's a good shot for the Yankees to take here. And I'm happy that he's had a great spring. But I don't think that we're going to see the MVP Bellinger again. I just don't.
Oh, I agree. I don't think we'll see that. That being said, one of my favorite bets so far is his over home run prop, which is 21.5. Or was it 20? I think it was 20.5, actually. So I'm on the over there, mainly because you already said it, Yankee Stadium. He should hit that by mistake. All right, with the short porch there. I can't. He may not hit 40, but I think he's hitting 25 plus. So I'm on Bellinger there. The Yankees have announced that he is going to bat third behind Aaron Judge. Pretty good place to be. All right, so Judge will be on first base. A bunch for him. A lot of fastballs coming his way here. So I think Bellinger will have a good year. Like I said, MVP year? No, I don't see that happening. But I think he'll have a good, solid year. Is he batting .465? No, I don't even know he's going to bat about 300. That's all. It's a great spring. Good for him. He's fitting in great. But I think he's going to be just fine with the New York Yankees. So, yes, I'm on his over home run prop. That's where I think he's going to make the most difference for the Yankees here and give them some athleticism. And maybe more importantly, he gets Judge out of center field.
Yep, agreed. All right, now let's get back to our favorite player of the day. It's Curtis Mead of the Tampa Bay Rays. George is poking fun But I heard this guy's name several years ago with Tampa Bay, so this is not surprising for me to see all of a sudden him come up. If I'm not mistaken, Curtis Mead from Australia didn't play baseball growing up. All of a sudden just sort of found it. And boy, has he found it this spring. He's making his case to make the team, George. I don't think the Rays have announced anything as of yet. So, okay, they did announce that. Thank you, Sam. That's why we have Sam here. So now that he has made it, how much playing time will he get? I mean, my only fear with somebody like this is, will they allow him to go through it in April and May and keep him up? I think so. I think the Rays are in a position to try and get the most they can out of him.
I think, once again, he's going to be in that platoon. And once again, he's at the wrong end of the platoon. So he's got to hit. He's got to hit to get in that lineup here. Listen, we know what the Rays are going to do, right, Craig? They're going to play the guys who are playing. They do that because they have no choice here. He's sort of a guy who can play all over the field. I play a little first, little second base here. First base, okay, that's Yandy Diaz, right? You're not getting much playing time there. Second base is Brandon Lowe. So that's really where you're looking at it. Maybe a little DH as well here. He's got to hit, but they have so many guys that are just like him. That if he doesn't hit, they're going to move on. They're going to find the guy who is going to hit there. So good for him. He's going to get a shot. He's a big guy, 6'2", but only 170 pounds, so he's a little wiry. So we'll see what he can do there. He's got to continue. I'm curious, but as the Rays as a team are going to do. Remember, they're not playing Tropicana. They're playing at Steinbrenner Field. All those home games in March, April, and May. What are they playing, 49 and 57 at home? Something crazy like that. So we'll see. That ballpark, though, is built after the Yankees, which means it's built for left-handed power. Something Mead is not. So Brandon Lowe may be able to take advantage of that. He's looking for a little cheap power there. Maybe it's Brandon Lowe later in your draft there, taking advantage of what is the short porch at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. So it's not really going to be built for the right-handers.
Yeah, I still think that if he performs, you're right about Yandy Diaz. I don't see him playing over him, but I still do see quite a bit of playing time coming for him if he performs. The Rays really have nothing to lose. But, again, it's one of those things where you don't know how a rookie's going to perform at the beginning of the season. All right, Brandon Drury signed a pretty big contract, George, to be honest with you, coming off his best season where we thought he was gone and finished in baseball, came back with Arizona, signed a mega deal, I believe over $50-60 million with the Angels. Angels were just handing out money. Finally, he's having a really good spring here. He had a disastrous season last year. Is it possible that there's a bounce back here for Drury going into the season?
You're playing in Chicago. It's a bandbox all over. Left, center, right. So the ball does fly out of there, especially once the weather heats up there. That being said, of all the drafts I've done, I don't think Drury's been drafted in any of them. I mean, not even drafted. So I don't think people are expecting it. What do you want me to tell you here? Yeah, can you take a shot at him late, middle infielder, bench kind of guy? Sure. Doesn't bother me to do that here. But another guy, I think you're moving on from eventually here. What are we hoping for here? He's going to hit 20-plus home runs, steal you some sparing of bases with a good average here? I'm not so sure I see that or I feel that. He's not a guy I'm after here. He's a guy, Craig, that'll be for me. Oh, look at that. He is hitting. Okay, I'm going to take him over this guy. It's already on my roster. That's probably where I go with Brandon Drury.
Bruised hand is the latest injury for Drury. Nasim Nunez, who I'm quite familiar with, he's a member of the Washington Nationals, was a Rule 5 pick, didn't play all that much. This kid can steal, man. They can move him up and down now that they can the entire season. I just wonder if they will.
Listen, we all need bases, though. Right, he can fly. If he can play, he'll be valuable for that one category that I keep saying that I have a big problem with. That I always have a big problem. I tried to correct that this season, Craig. I actually tried to draft some stolen base guys. So that's what we're looking for with Nunez.
Deep league possibility, and certainly the Nationals are going to be very improved from last year. All right, coming up next, is there another ace in Atlanta? Go away.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. More spring training standouts from the pitching side. Do you believe in pitching? Do you believe on what we see? Because, I mean, this is the hardest part about it. But I would tell you, George, that one of the hottest names going into the baseball season, and maybe one of the reasons why the Braves didn't necessarily replace Morton or Fried, is because of this kid's performance last season, and it has carried right over into the spring training season, Spencer Schwellenbach, 18 innings in the spring, 26 strikeouts, 2 walks, 2.41 earned run average. Maybe the fastest rising in average draft position during the fantasy baseball draft season. Went from someone in a 12-team league that you were like, all right, Schwellenbach could be my 4. No problem. Now you'd be lucky to get him as your 3. George, I mean, this guy has looked fantastic.
He was good last year, right? I know he helped me a bunch last year on my fantasy team, so he was certainly on my list for this season. And you're right, he's climbing. All right, he's climbing because he's pitching so well here. The Braves are going to be a problem for people, right? You got Sale, Schwellenbach, Lopez, Strider. Now looks like he can be back in 3 weeks. All right, not May, maybe mid-April here. So he's being drafted much higher than we expected because you had to get him back earlier, and he looks great too. Then he struck out 6 batters in 2 innings the other day against Boston, so he looks good as well. AJ Smith-Shawyer also looks good. So the Atlanta Braves look dangerous. They just look dangerous. They keep finding pitching here. But yeah, Schwellenbach is one of those guys where, listen, I'm not going to say he's going to be that anchor of your team, but he's getting real close to that. Where he could be, if you got him at 4 because you drafted early in March, you got to have a grin ear to ear right now because things are working out fantastic for you. Yes, I'm on board with Schwellenbach.
All right, Logan Allen in the Cleveland pitching factory is going to get another shot to stick in the Cleveland rotation this season. He has been lights out as well. 1.89 earned run average in 19 innings. If you may remember the story on Logan Allen, it was him being fantastic with Cleveland 2 years ago, him being the hot name this time last year, and then George not really performing in the way that they thought. So I guess the question is now the time that he sort of delivers on that promise, because he took a step back last year. Maybe he's figured it out this year.
He's only 26 years old, so I don't think we should nail him too much for what happened last year. He plays in a very good pitcher's park in Cleveland. All right, you said it. They are sort of a pitching factory here. They develop pitchers. You think of Tanabibi, Gavin Williams. I know Gavin Williams is a guy I'm on this year, by the way, more than Logan Allen. Another guy who struggled last year coming back from injury. That he has had a good spring here. I like what he can do. Ben Lively's there as well. So, am I willing to give Allen another shot? Sure. I'm probably a little nervous because he was on a team or two of mine last year and he spit the bit. Didn't work out well for me at all. I don't want to give up on him. I said I do like where he's pitching. I do worry if you're looking for wins, can be tough to come by. That offense outside of Jose Ramirez isn't there. They're not going to score all that many runs here. But he's a guy I don't mind having at the back end of my rotation, or maybe once again our reserve pitcher for you. We're going to need them. So I have my trepidations, a little worried, but I'm not afraid to have him on my roster.
All right, a couple of years ago, our next subject here was one of the very best pitchers in baseball. I mean, that's just the truth. Robbie Ray, looked like a superstar as a pitcher, and then it's just one thing after the other with the injuries, George, and the performance too. My gosh, but he's back again here and starting to get drafted again in fantasy baseball, which is not something that we had said last year. 14 innings, 19 strikeouts, 1.26 earned run average is just kind of hard to ignore the struggles and the injuries that he's had the last couple of years, but I also don't want to ignore what he used to be.
Exactly. Which guy are we getting? I don't think you want to get the Cy Young guy. All right, I think that's a little bit too nuts to look for. But he should be much better than he was last season. Oh, last season wasn't awful. He had the 4.7 ERA, but the WHIP was 1.14, which isn't awful here. And he still had over a strikeout per inning. So let you know his stuff was still there here. My biggest worry here, Greg, last 2 years combined, he's thrown 34 innings. How many innings are we getting out of him this year? Can he get 100, 120? I mean, how much do they want to blow past that, that whole 40 innings thing from year to year? So that might be a worry. What happens as the season goes along? But I don't think I'm afraid to draft him. I'm not paying a premium price for him, but I don't think I'm afraid to draft him, double-digit rounds here. And then, if I have to move on, I'll move on here. Maybe he's a guy you want to trade in June. If you're having a good year because you're worried about how that innings is going to build up here, you move on from him to get somebody who can help you for the stretch.
Christopher Sanchez, back end of the Phillies rotation, which is super strong here at this point. I mean, I guess that's the only worry is that any struggle, they'll just replace you there. My gosh, they are so good going into the season. Chris Sanchez has been great too. Shouldn't be a surprise. Could be the next superstar there, but they do have, of course, a fronted rotation with Aaron Nola. He's the second starter. Wheeler is the first starter. Suarez. I mean, they got Luzardo too. George, has one spot left. That's it.
Yeah, there's a loaded team. I think the second best team in baseball outside of those the Dodgers here. Once again, no issues with Sanchez. You want me to be negative about it? I could let you know. Listen, they do play in a bandbox here, and as Sam is letting us know, Painter, who's a top prospect, they're bringing him along slowly, and they can afford to do that because Craig just told you all the pitches they have. They don't have to rush anybody here. So Painter could be there at some point, especially after you said if one of these guys struggle, okay, let's put Painter in. They'll be fine here. Philly's going to be a team to be reckoned with. What should be a loaded National League East. Braves we just talked about. Mets we'll talk about shortly here. Sam's National should be better than they've been here. So, I'm on board once again. I'm on board with any Philadelphia Philly.
Yep. Finally, Hayden Birdsong, San Francisco Giants, fifth starter, potentially in the rotation, George. Giants play in a great environment there, but I can't draft based on that. It wasn't really great last year either, so not really sure if this is legit.
I'll draft Logan Webb. I'll draft Robbie Ray later. Probably not drafting Birdsong unless, listen, we're around 22. He's there. Fine. Like I said, every pitcher and their mother is going to be drafted because, like I said, they're all falling. All right, so I'll take a shot. You said it. He does pitch at a very good pitcher's ballpark here, especially if to left-handed batters. So I don't mind giving him a shot, but I'm not expecting huge things. He's that guy. Once again, you draft, and I'll move on from him in mid-April for the hot guy that's on the waiver wire.
Yep, would agree. All right, we'll take a quick time out on fantasy sports today. George's bold predictions are upon us. Then in hour 2, we will preview opening day. Don't go away.
two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Gray Albright of Razzball is going to join us coming up in about 35 minutes from now. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today as we put a bow on our fantasy baseball draft coverage for the season. Opening day is coming up on Thursday, and George and I are going to preview all of the opening series coming up soon. But before we do that, let me turn this over to George as we end our first hour. George closes us out with bold predictions for 2025.
All right, so let's have some fun here with some bold predictions here. My first one, let's alienate everybody in New York and Queens and the Bronx here. I'm going to go with the Yankees and Mets. Both don't make the playoffs this year. Yankees, I think the answers are the reason's pretty obvious, right? No Garrett Cole. Louis Hill, maybe July. Comes back, and we'll see what kind of pitcher he is from the lat injury there. The Yankees have just, you heard Brian Cashman say it, they can't take any more hits. Their rotation literally is down to 6 pitches, period. Anybody else gets hurt, I don't know what they're going to do here. And you already got Clark Schmidt who's starting behind everybody. You're relying on Will Warren, a rookie. Carlos Carrasco, remember, these guys are in the rotation. So they're relying on these guys to pitch and pitch well here. Stroman, good luck. Good luck to you. They just can't afford any hits. Stanton, every Yankee fan complains about Stanton, but you need him in the lineup, and now they don't have him. All right, and I don't know when he's coming back, right? They're not even talking about him anymore. What if Judge gets hurt? It's all over but the crying. So I'm going to go with the Yankees not to make the playoffs here. That division is going to be tough with Boston, Toronto, Tampa, Baltimore. They're all about the same. So it's going to be tough for the Yankees to win that division wild card. You got all these teams and more battling for those positions. For the Mets, it's sort of similar here. Your rotation is Cody Senga, who barely pitched last year. I don't know how many innings you can get out of him. Manaya's already hurt. Montas is already hurt. Clay Holmes, the reliever, is your opening day starter. How many innings can you get out of him this year before he's done? McGill, Canny, you just don't have the pitching. I thought they made a mistake not going at the Burns or not going at the Max Fried, whatever it might have cost to get those guys. Stearns the GM just doesn't believe in signing long-term contracts to starting pitchers, which I kind of understand, but it puts you in this kind of bind because they can hit. The Mets are they're going to play a lot of 9-7 games. A lot of overs, both team total overs and game overs for the New York Mets this season here. Yankees and Mets both to miss the playoffs this season. Next bold prediction, Shohei Ohtani. This is not a negative. He's going to hit just fine. He might win the MVP again, but he's not going to start more than 10 games. I don't think the Dodgers want him to start. I just don't. They don't need him to start. We all know with the Dodgers, they have so many starting pitchers, right? It's one of the reasons they went that direction where they signed all these guys. They signed Sasaki. You got Yamamoto. You signed Snell. You got Glass now. Kershaw, who's put on a 60-day IL, which is fine. You'll get him back eventually, right? Dustin May is back. He looks really good, by the way. Might want to grab him in the league draft. You got Gonsolin, who'll be back from injury. You don't need Ohtani to start. And have you noticed that they're ramping him down, slowing him down? Because they want his bat lineup. They don't want him to worry about pitching. I think if the Dodgers had their way, he wouldn't pitch at all. Just hey, put that bat lineup here. We'll go from there. He wants to pitch. So I think that's what's going on there with Shohei Ohtani. He's going to make some starts here. And listen, it wouldn't shock me, by the way, if he's pitching well, if he is a top 4 starter in the playoffs for them. But once again, Yamamoto, Sasaki, Snell, Glasnow, if they're all healthy, you just don't need Ohtani here. So once again, less than 10 starts for Ohtani. Next one on the board here. Vladimir Guerrero, Toronto Blue Jays. He's going to win the American League MVP. Contract year. And when I say contract year, I mean big time contract year. All right. Now, they play in a bandbox. I think he's going to hit 40-plus home runs this year. He's got a big season. Bo Bichette looks good, which is helpful as far as driving in runs, giving him some protection. I think they're going to score some runs. There is a worry here. All right. If the Blue Jays are out of it, it is a contract year. He didn't sign with them. They tried to sign with him before the season started. They could trade him. They can't risk losing him for nothing. So there is some a risk here that Sam brought up. What if he's traded to a National League team? Well, there goes your MVP. So there is some risk here, but that's why it's a bold prediction, right? So Vladimir Guerrero to win the MVP to get it over someone like Aaron Judge here. Last one, Brent Rooker of the A's. You need Judge to probably get an injury here, but that's a bandbox they play in Sacramento. The ball's going to fly out of there. This is not the Oakland Coliseum. Brent Rooker to lead the American League in home runs. I think he's hitting over 40. So you're going to need Judge to calm down a little bit. Judge plays 150. He's probably going to hit 55, 60 again. But Rooker's right there. A lot of power coming from Rooker. Average, not so much here, but a lot of power coming from Rooker. All right, so these are my bold predictions for you. Craig Mish and I will be back after this. We'll be back. We're going to go over every opening series. Opening day is on Thursday. One of my favorite days of the year here. We're going to go over every series this coming weekend. Gray Albright's going to join us at the bottom of the hour from Razzball. Talk more fantasy baseball with Gray. We got Buy or Sell for you. And, of course, we got the Complain Minute that I love here. Fantasy Sports Today, back right after this.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.